Welcome to the baseball show. And if you are watching us, you are right here on Fantrax. That's right. We have moved to Fantrax. Everything looks the same. The budget is not any different, but we have moved channels, and we're hoping that the Fantrax audience embraces us like our own audience has. I'm Andy Singleton. That's Ralph Lifshitz, of course. We talk to you on a weekly basis. Well, to this point, we've been coming through 3 days a week with 3 separate episodes covering 3 players in each episode at 3 different player positions. 3 pitchers, 3 hitters, 3 prospects. We're going to keep that going for another week or two, and then we're going to jump in to our normal weekly show, which is going to be a live show on Tuesday nights right here on the Fantrax YouTube channel. It will then be cut down to basically a 20-minute highlight episode, and hopefully you guys will enjoy that. We're going to have a ton of big-name guests from throughout the fantasy baseball industry, from every site you probably frequent. So, all that is there, and, maybe some other surprises loaded in as well. So, Ralph, are you excited to be here now at Fantrax?
I couldn't be more excited. I've wet myself at least 3 times today.
Awesome. And that's just today. So
just today.
Well, let me just make quick mention that please, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, I know we're kind of in transition right now. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, if you've never tuned into us before, hit the pause button real quick, hit subscribe, then hit play and resume this video. Follow Fantrax on Twitter. You can follow Ralph and myself on our personal accounts. You can see the names below us, but there's a lot of good stuff going on. There's going to be a lot of giveaways. Just last night, we gave away a free entry into a $100 fantasy baseball league on Fantrax. Lots of goodies like that. So if you're not following, you're not going to know. If you're not subscribed, you're not going to be eligible. So plenty of reasons for you to want to do those things. I also want to make mention that Fantrax has a blog they're rolling out with its own fresh content, writers writing for Fantrax. So this is all something new that's coming out. In addition to us being here with our video shows, there's going to be all kinds of new articles being posted as well. A lot of good stuff happening, all different sports being covered, not just baseball, not just football, basketball, golf, NASCAR, you name it. If it involves a ball, it's going to be on Fantrax. So maybe we can coin that as a new phrase or a motto. Anyway, I think I've done more than enough talking. So let's just jump into things right away with 3 pitchers. We're going to talk Carlos Martinez today, along with Julio Urias and Wei Jin Chen. This almost could be a World Baseball Classic with the variety we have here. Dominican, a Mexican, and what is it, Taiwanese? I don't know. But
yes, I believe he's from Taiwan.
Well, is that how you say it? Taiwanese? I'm not sure. But that's the geographical. Taiwanese. Okay, well, then I did get it right. But that's the geographical breakdown for the 3 pitches we're featuring today. We're going to start with Carlos Martinez, St. Louis Cardinals. He's currently being drafted as the 15th starting pitcher off the board, 65th overall. I do want to make quick mention that ADP data is coming from Fantrax. Fantrax has ADP data. So if you were unaware of that, go to the player section, and there's an ADP column, and you can sort by position, by overall, however you want to do it. But that's where we're getting our ADP from now. So please, hopefully you'll utilize that as well. Carlos Martinez, 15th starting pitcher off the board, 65th overall. And, sometimes, you get guys who are no-brainers. Carlos Martinez being one of them. The numbers support it, the team, the fan appeal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. C-Mart is definitely one of those guys. He's turned in back-to-back 3 ERAs, and I'm talking like literally 3. It was a 3.01 and a 3.04. He's been near his career K per 9 ratio of 8.5 per game. He gives you decent whip at 1.2, and he's a legit ace. What's remarkable to me, though, Ralph, is that there was concern at one point about his durability as a starter due to his 6-foot stature and whether or not he would be better suited in the bullpen. And the reason that interests me is because, as I stated, he is an ace, but he's done so without having surpassed 200 innings in a season to this point. I understand 195 that he threw in 2016. It's close, but my point is there's room that he can be even better than what he's been to this point, and he's already an ace. So while his ADP is costly, when you look at who's going around him, I feel like maybe only Jacob deGrom is safer. And I think I want Carlos Martinez ahead of a lot of other guys in that same range. So are you feeling the same love and affection for Carlos Martinez than I am, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
worried?
And no, I'm feeling C-Mart, and there's a few reasons for that. He's still young. I think there is room for improvement, as you said. And I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that, Carlos Martinez has sort of been in the collective consciousness of fantasy baseball players and managers out there for about 4 or 5 years now. And he's still very young. But he's only really been a starter for 2 years. He obviously, his first couple of years in St. Louis was working mostly out of the bullpen. So I think it's easy to sort of get lost in that transition and say, well, how much is this guy really going to improve? We have to look at the fact that last year, when he hit those 195 innings, that was his second full season as a starter. The stuff is good. I mean, there's a lot of positive things that ticked in the right direction last year with C-Mart. One in particular was the velocity. Velocity was up almost 1.5 miles on his fastball. He actually maxed out. He hit 101 on the gun at the WBC last week. So I don't know if the gun was hot or not, but it just shows he's got that upper register sort of fastball and velocity. He's plus pitches in his two-seam sinking fastball. He's got a plus pitch in his slider. And he's got about average pitches in his curveball and change. So he's got sort of a varied arsenal of pitches that he comes after hitters with. He had, sort of a drop in K per 9 stuff last year. He was hovering right around 8, where he had been the upper 8s, low 9s before that. He does walk some batters. His walks are typically going to be in the 3s, so he's not a control ace, but he is a guy that can miss things with the fastball. And the biggest thing that he does well is get a ton of weak contact. And that's something that's trended in the right direction the last 3 years, as his ground ball rate has gone up 3 years consecutively. It topped out, I think, at about 56.4% this year. And in turn, his line drive rate, which I talk about consistently if you've watched any of our previous videos, as an indicator of good hard contact, how often people are barreling up balls he's throwing in the zone. His line drive rate was below 20 for the first time in his career. That's a great indicator. That's a great sign. I think things are trending in the right direction. And, if he can miss a few more bats and start to evolve a little bit more as a pitcher, maybe with his sequencing and some of those things, I think this guy could be a top 5 pitcher. As it stands, he's 15 to 20 range, and he's certainly somebody at his current ADP. I know a lot of Fantrax ADPs probably factor in a lot of dynasty leagues, but I would definitely take a chance on a redraft and in dynasty.
Yeah, so do you think he can outperform his ADP? It's not a lot of room to go up from 15, but is it possible? As I was mentioning before, if he does surpass 200 innings for the first time this season, is there room to believe that he can get a couple more wins, get to 20? He's been at 14 and 16 the last 2 years. Can he get to that 20? Are we looking at potentially the NL Cy Young winner?
I think things could absolutely trend in that direction. We saw nobody expected Rick Porcello to win the AL Cy Young last year. So, he's not a long shot at all. And I think, if he ticks a few things in the right direction, he misses a few more bats, he walks a few less batters, the win total has been 14 and 16. He's on a good team. If things break the right way and it hits 20, yeah, we could definitely be talking about a guy in the Cy Young race for sure.
All right. Well, you mentioned with Carlos Martinez that he's been on the dynasty landscape for quite some time already, as has the next guy we're going to talk about, Julio Urias. Is it Urias? Is it Urias? Is it Urias? Uranus? I don't know, whatever. But speaking of Uranus, holy crap, this kid won't be 21 until August. He's already in the bigs. I mean, even the majority of casual baseball fans had heard his name before he actually got to Los Angeles last year. He's currently the 38th starting pitcher off the board, 155th overall. Listen, the guy's always been young for every level he's been at, and he's dominated everywhere as well. His 3.39 ERA in his 77-inning debut was bad. And when I say bad by his standards, by almost a full run. Like, that's how good this kid has been. He also finished with nearly a 10 K per 9 ratio. Now, this was against grown-ups. This was against major league hitters. There is no next level. This is the show. I guess you could say there is another level, but that is only to his game itself. His innings limit reduced his innings down the stretch, but they didn't necessarily reduce his dominance. After a rough go in his first couple starts, he really, really started to figure things out and started to catch fire. I mean, his ERA was a 10 after his debut against the Mets. I think it went up to a 12 after that. And for him to whittle that down over 77 innings to a 3.39 just shows you how dominant he was in certain stretches. I think people are forgetting that. Maybe not. His ADP is fairly high for a 20-year-old. But not only is he incredibly fun to root for and somebody you should want on your teams, but he may, actually, I shouldn't say he may, I believe he will end up as a top 20 pitcher. And I say top 20, not higher than that, because he's likely on an innings limit this year as well, which will, likely cut in. So maybe not a top 20 because of the innings limit that I expect him to be on. I'm looking somewhere in the 150 to 160 range is where I think he'll be this year. Again, he's only 20 years old. He'll be 21 at the end of the summer. But he will absolutely outperform his ADP. If you're in a keeper league, you should be reaching 2 rounds to make sure you lock him up for next year. That's how high I am on Urias. Is that crazy? Am I talking out of my Uranus now?
No, I don't think you're talking out of your Urias at this moment. But yeah, I think there's no question as to the talent that this kid possesses. I mean, it's immense. There's probably no better pitching prospect in the game, potentially even over the last 10 years, and that includes Clayton Kershaw. Just in terms of what this guy has done from such a young age and how advanced he's been as a pitcher, not just as a thrower, not just in terms of stuff, but in terms of his actual understanding of the art of pitching. This is a guy that has the whole package. The frustrating thing about owning Urias is the innings limit. I mean, he's been very limited in terms of what his innings were. It was aggressive to see him up last season. I was happy that that's how it broke. I think a lot of people, myself included, thought Jose De Leon as a older pitcher would probably be the first guy that got the call. He was hurt, so it was Urias, and he showed well. And I think it's easy to glance over the numbers and say, yeah, he pitched pretty well, but we should look a little bit deeper into the fact that this kid, for the majority of the season, was 19 years old when he was doing this. He had a good swing and strike rate, 10.3%. The K percentage, was 25% to a walk rate that was under 10%. It was about 9% in terms of what he had. He had a 3.39 ERA, and that's despite batting average on balls in play that was 358, which is relatively high. His left on base was 77%, so it was about equal. So he didn't have great luck one way or the other, but he's got a lot of other great things going in his direction besides the swing and miss stuff. Good velocity split between his 4 predominant pitches, his fastball in the 90s, curveball, change, and slider, all range between 85 to 75 miles an hour in terms of what their average velocity is. He throws all 3 of his off-speed or secondary pitches somewhere between 13 to 16% in terms of the usage rates. So he's really varying those pitches, and he's not leaning on one secondary offering more than another one. And he had positive values on 2 of his secondary offerings, in his slider and then his changeup. So I think it just goes to show there was even more that could come from this kid. The thing that's going to be frustrating this year could be the innings limit up front. It looks as if he may start the season in AAA Oklahoma City and then eventually get called up into the Dodgers rotation. So when you say he's a top 20 pitcher, I'll put one qualifier on that. What if we say he's probably a top 20 pitcher in the second half of the season, which down the stretch could be exactly what's going to win you championships?
Yeah, and I'm perfectly fine with that because, as we both have mentioned, we both think he's going to be on an innings limit, if for no other reason than just his age. There's no real need to, hurt yourself long term to get a movie like season out of this guy. So yeah, I will say he's got top 20 talent, and that's now as a 20-year-old. By the time he's 25, he's going to have top 5 talent. If he goes in the same direction with the same projection, I should say. The crazy thing is he does it with one eye. He's got a defect that he's only got one eye. It's really insane. The
he's
more
got 2.
Well, he's got 2 eyes, but he's only got use.
They fixed it last year.
Doesn't he only have use of one eye?
That might be true. I know that they fixed the eyelid issue that he had last year because it's L.A., so the vanity is important. They had to make sure that they got him looking as pretty as possible.
No, I didn't mean like he was like a 6-fingered freak like Antonio Alfonseca, or he's walking, taking the mound like Cyclops or something. I didn't mean in that. He has 2 eyes that he was born with, but I think only one of them is actually of use at this point. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but anyway, all right, let's move on. We've talked enough about Urias, and we are going to probably talk way more about him going forward in the future because he's just starting to enter the landscape of the majors. But Wei Yin Chen, Wei Yin Chi. I think every website you go to has a different pronunciation and spelling of some of the Asian players that come over to the major leagues. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory in any way, shape, or form. I just want to know what is the actual correct way that the guy himself would like me to say it. He right now is the 106th starting pitcher. He's 338th off the board. So literally nobody's drafting him. You'd have to think his second run through Miami will go better than his first. Believe it or not, he gave up more home runs in the 305 than he did in Camden Yards. That just makes no sense whatsoever. He doesn't walk many, which helps his whip, but his ERA has never been great. He's in the fours, career-wise. He doesn't K a ton of batters. And are the Marlins really going to win enough games to make you think he could help you in that department? I'm not super confident for that, but I don't know. Half his 22 starts were of the distance that he could get a quality start out of it. So maybe you want to look if you're in a quality start league, but I see some people are touting him as a sleeper candidate and someone who will bounce back. I definitely agree he'll bounce back, but it still doesn't amount to someone I want to roster. If he bounces back to his career norms, it's still not somebody you're really going all in for. Only in the deepest of leagues. I'm talking like 16 plus teams before I'm even considering him. So, Mr. Lifshitz, you wanted him on the show. Hopefully you'll have something better to say about him than I did.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting take, which is one of the reasons that I suggested we look at Chen. And I think the funny thing is, myself included, a lot of people looked at it last year and said, wow, he's going from Baltimore, which is, notoriously a hitter's park and a tough place to pitch in the AL East. He's had some success. If he goes to Miami, which at the time, I don't think we realized that they would be as good as they were, but great pitching environment, NL East, poor hitting, division overall. I think we just sort of assumed that Chen would see some more success going to the NL East. That totally was not the case. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, if you just look surface level, he did lose some velocity in his fastball, while a lot of his secondary offerings crept up in velocity. So it was less of a split. She's keeping hitters less off balance in terms of that sort of thing. And then there was the elbow injury in July. He had an elbow sprain, shut him down, I think, for the rest of the season. He missed the next 2 months. So looking a little bit deeper, what happened with Chen? What's the reason? Was it just he was hurt? He was just ineffective because of the velocity, or is there some other stuff there? Well, I'm not sure if this plays into a role or velocity played a role in this, but his biggest issue last year is this is a guy who historically had been in the top 10 to 15 pitchers in all of baseball in terms of pop-up rate. And I've talked about infield fly balls and pop-up rate before and how it's the greatest indicator for hitters of weak contact as well as pitchers with weak contact. Well, Chen went from being a guy that I think was 9 from his time he entered the league in 2012 until 2015, his last season with the Orioles, to 90th last year. He went from a 14% infield fly ball rate in 2015 to a 6.8 infield fly ball rate in 2016. So he was inducing, far harder contact in general, less weak contact, less infield fly balls, which was an issue because this is a guy that typically was working relatively high in the zone with his fastball, trying to get those pop-ups, trying to get hitters underneath it. He would keep them off balance with a curve and a slider that had decent drop on it and sink. The other part of what happens, in addition to the drop in velocity, the lack of the infield fly balls, might have been the fact that he lost about an inch or two in terms of break on both his curveball and his slider. So his secondary stuff wasn't as sharp. He started pitching lower in the zone, which allowed hitters to get more of the ball. And he wasn't inducing the infield fly balls, which had been his calling card previously. So there was a lot of issues there. Now, I don't know if it was injury-based. I don't know if there were some elbow issues from the beginning of the season on. And I know if I remember correctly, because I did own him in one league, I think he was pulled early with an elbow issue in the first or second start of the season. So maybe it snowballed from there, and he was just pitching hurt, led to ineffectiveness and him trying to overplay it. It'll be interesting to see what he does this year. I think if you're drafting him 300, 350th overall or whatever it was, he's the back end of your rotation, even in a deeper league, might be worth a chance, but certainly not somebody I'm looking at in 12-team roto leagues at all.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was 338th overall. I think we're unanimously in agreement with all three of these pitchers. That's going to do it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed our Fantrax debut. If you're new to the baseball show, we hope we did enough to get you to want to watch another one, which means you can subscribe to the channel right now to ensure that you don't miss the next episode. We're going to be talking 3 hitters tomorrow, and the day after we'll be talking 3 prospects. You can go back and check the player library. We're in the process of transferring everybody we've covered since the end of December, beginning of January. It's up to almost 100 players. We're going to go through about 125 in total. Please leave your comments. Give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like anything about the show, don't just tune us out. Leave it in the comments. Tell us what you'd like to see us do differently or what you didn't like that we did. And, we'll improve for you. So that's going to do it. Make sure you're following Fantrax on Twitter. So like I said at the beginning of the show, you can get involved in all these great giveaways we're going to be doing. You can follow Ralph and myself, and we'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed it.